All right, strap in, everyone, because today we're going deep.
Deep into the data, that is.
Yeah, we're talking football, but not the usual X's and O's. We're going way beyond the scoreboard.
We're talking about the revolution happening behind the scenes thanks to data analytics.
Exactly. And our playbook for this deep dive, this awesome article from Knowable magazine.
How next-gen data analytics is changing American football. Catchy title, right?
Definitely grabs your attention. And believe me, the content lives up to the hype.
I think even the most die-hard football fans will be surprised by some of the stuff we're going to uncover.
Oh, absolutely. We're going to tackle some big questions today, like, can data really reveal the impact of players who, don't always get the glory?
Those unsung heroes, right?
Yeah, like the offensive lineman who makes that crucial block but never sees his name in the headline.
Exactly. We're going to see how data is finally giving them the credit they deserve.
And hold on tight, because we're also going to explore whether a computer could actually call the plays.
Sounds like science fiction, but it's closer to reality than you might think.
No kidding. We'll also get into how teams are using data in the draft, and it's not just about 40-yard dash times anymore.
Nope. They're looking at player movement and reaction times in incredible detail.
It's like having a crystal ball that can predict a player's future. Okay, so let's start with this whole next-gen stats thing.
Yeah, it's been a game changer,
Yeah.
literally. The NFL's basically turned every game into a giant data lab.
I mean, they're putting chips in players' shoulder pads, even the football itself. What's the deal with that?
It's all about tracking every movement, every interaction in real time. We're talking 10 data points every second for every player on the field.
Whoa, that's a lot of data, but it's not just about collecting it, right? It's about what you do with it. So what are some of the biggest surprises that have come out of all this data?
Well, one of the most fascinating things is how it's revealing the impact of players we might have overlooked before. Like you were saying, the offensive lineman who creates that perfect hole for a running back.
Right, we all see the running back score, but what about the guy who made it happen?
Exactly. Now we can actually measure things like the force they exert, the space they create. It's a whole new way to appreciate those often unseen contributions.
It's like finally giving those unsung heroes the recognition they deserve, right?
Absolutely. The article even talks about an 88-yard touchdown run and how Next-Gen Stats was able to break down the blocker's impact on that play. It's incredible.
Yeah, I read that part. Really puts things into perspective. So this kind of analysis is actually changing how the game is played.
Oh, definitely. Teams are using this data to evaluate players, come up with game strategies, even negotiate contracts.
Wait, contracts? You're telling me data could play a role in how much a player gets paid?
Absolutely. Think about it. You're a defensive lineman who's constantly disrupting plays, but you don't always get the sack. Before Next-Gen Stats, your impact might have been overlooked. But now, with fractional cackle stats, we can see exactly how much you contribute.
So that kind of data could be like a bargaining chip for players.
You got it.
Yeah.
It's proof of their value, even if it doesn't always show up in the traditional stats.
Wow, I'm starting to see how this is way bigger than just numbers on a screen. It's about understanding the game at a much deeper level.
And it might even change how the game is played in the future. It's an exciting time to be a football fan, that's for sure.
You said it. Okay, so we've got data revealing the impact of hidden players, data influencing contracts. What else?
Well, there's this whole thing called the Big Data Bowl. It's like the Super Bowl for football analytics.
Oh, yeah, I've heard about this. It's where all the data whizzes come together and try to outsmart each other.
Basically, they compete to come up with innovative new ways to understand the game using, all this data we've been talking about.
And some of the stuff they come up with is mind-blowing. Like, what are some of the coolest things that have come out of the Big Data Bowl?
Well, in 2020, these two data scientists from Austria who didn't even know much about American football.
No kidding.
Yeah, they ended up winning the whole thing. They created this model that predicted expected rushing yards with crazy accuracy.
Seriously? And what happened?
The NFL was so impressed, they actually started using their algorithm in the official Next-Gen Stats broadcast.
So it's not just some theoretical exercise. It's actually impacting what we see on TV.
Absolutely. And it's not just about rushing yards. The 2024 Big Data Bowl, they focused on tackles, specifically missed tackle opportunities.
Missed tackles, huh? Seems pretty specific.
Yeah, it was. And this team from Princeton, they won it using this technique called decision trees.
Decision trees. I know those from, business stuff. How do they work in football?
Think of it like a flow chart, where each decision leads to a different outcome. These guys used it to analyze the probability of a tackle happening at different points in a play.
So they could see when a tackle was most likely to happen.
Exactly. And more importantly, when it was likely to be missed. Their big discovery was that they could identify these missed tackle opportunities by looking at the peaks and valleys in the probability of a tackle happening.
So, like, if the probability suddenly drops, that's a missed tackle.
Pretty much. They even came up with a very specific definition for a missed tackle based on their analysis.
Okay, I'm curious. What's their definition?
All right, so it's a missed tackle when a defender's probability of making a tackle is over 75% for like half a second, then drops below 75%, and neither he nor his teammates make the tackle in the next second.
Wow, that's super specific.
Yeah, it's all about precision. Before, missed tackle was a pretty subjective thing. Now we've got a data-driven definition that's way more accurate.
Okay, so we've got data revealing hidden players, data in contract negotiations, data defining missed tackles.
It's changing everything. And get this. Teams are using this data to revolutionize how they draft players. They're looking at player movement, reaction times, all kinds of things we couldn't measure before.
Wait, so they're trying to predict how good a player will be based on data?
Not just how good, but how their specific skills and attributes will translate to the NFL. We're talking about how quickly they get off the ball, their closing speed, their reaction time when, say, the ball is in the air.
I guess those are pretty important things in football. So is this like Moneyball, but for football?
You could say that.
Yeah.
It's all about finding those hidden gems, those players whose true potential might not be obvious at first glance.
This is really blowing my mind. But with all this incredible data, are we losing sight of, like, the human element of the game? I mean, football's about passion and those unpredictable moments of brilliance, right?
You bring up a good point. Data is a powerful tool, no doubt, but it's not a replacement for human judgment. It's about finding that balance between what the data tells us and the expertise of coaches and players.
Right. It's not data versus humans. It's got to be both working together.
Exactly. We want to understand the game better, but we also want to keep that sense of wonder and excitement.
Well said. It sounds like we're just at the beginning of this data-driven revolution in football. So where do we go from here? Can data really predict the outcome of a game? Are we heading towards a future where algorithms are calling the plays?
Those are some big questions.
Yeah.
And I think we're ready to tackle them head on in the next part of our deep dive.
Okay, I'm ready. Let's do it. All right, so we've seen data can reveal those hidden contributions, influencing contracts, even redefining what a missed tackle even is. But the big question I think a lot of people have is, can data actually predict, like, the outcome of a game?
I think that's a question that's on a lot of people's minds. Fans,
Yeah.
coaches, even data scientists themselves. The idea that a computer can predict a football game. It's exciting and maybe a little bit scary too.
I see that. Like, it would be cool if we could, like, know who was going to win. But wouldn't that kind of ruin some of the fun? Part of what I love about sports is that, anything could happen.
Right. And that's where the debate gets interesting. I mean, data can definitely give us insights, like probabilities of things happening. We can look at matchups and see which team might have the advantage or how weather could play a role. But knowing those things and actually predicting the final score, those are two very different things.
So what are the biggest challenges to, like, actually making an algorithm that could predict a game?
Well, you got to think about all the variables, right? We got weather, injuries, how the players are feeling that day, even how loud the crowd is. All that stuff can have a huge impact on the game. And a lot of those things, you can't really measure them.
It's like, I don't know, trying to predict which way a leaf is going to fall off a tree.
Yeah. You can look at the wind and the weight of the leaf, but there's always that element of chance.
Totally. That's just nature.
Yeah.
And in a lot of ways, that's sports too.
Yeah, there's always going to be that unpredictable element, those moments of brilliance or those mistakes that can completely change the game. And those moments, those come from the players. Instinct, making decisions under pressure, maybe even a bit of luck.
So are you saying that, like, the human element is always going to be the X factor? Like, no matter how good our algorithms get, we're never going to be able to predict a football game 100%.
Yeah, I think it's pretty unlikely. I don't think we're ever going to get to a point where a computer can just, like, tell us for sure who's going to win. Honestly, I think that's a good thing. Part of what makes sports so great is that we don't know what's going to happen.
Right. Like, if we knew the outcome before the game even started, wouldn't it be kind of boring?
Yeah. Think about it. The thrill of victory, the agony of defeat, all those emotions, they're so much stronger because we don't know what's going to happen next.
That makes sense. So data can help us understand the game better, but it's not a crystal ball. There are always going to be those moments that nobody sees coming. Those moments that, like, make you jump out of your seat and go crazy.
Exactly. And that's something to be excited about. As much as we can try to analyze and understand the game, there will always be a place for the unexpected, for those moments of, like, pure human drama.
I like that. Okay, so maybe data can't tell us the final score,
Mhm.
but it's definitely changing how we see the game. It's helping us see those players we might not have noticed before, evaluate players better, and even draft smarter.
And it's changing how we watch the game, too. Think about all the stats and graphics we see on TV now. Data is giving us a much deeper understanding of what's happening on the field.
It's like we're all becoming analysts. I mean, we're seeing the game in a whole new way, and that's pretty awesome. So where do we go from here? Like, what are some of the most exciting things you see happening with football analytics?
Yeah, it does feel like we're just scratching the surface. What are you most excited about for the future? What's on the horizon?
One thing that really gets me going is how we can use this data to keep players healthy, prevent those injuries.
Oh, that's a huge one. I mean, some teams are already tracking player workload and stuff to figure out, like, who might be at risk of getting hurt.
So they can actually intervene and help players stay on the field.
Exactly. And not just preventing injuries, but also, like, making recovery and rehab even better. Imagine personalized training programs based on a player's own data.
That's pretty wild. So data could actually help players have longer careers.
For sure. It's all about optimizing performance and keeping those bodies in top shape.
Okay, that's awesome. What about for the fans? How will this data change how we watch the game?
Oh, man. I think it's going to be so cool. We're talking more interactive, personalized viewing experiences. Imagine choosing which stats you want to see on your screen. Or, like, creating your own custom stats.
That's crazy, like having your own little analytics dashboard for the game.
Exactly. And with VR and AR coming up, who knows? Maybe we'll be able to experience the game from a player's perspective. See what they see.
Whoa. That would be amazing. It sounds like the future of football is going to be this crazy mix of data, tech, and that raw emotion that we all love.
For sure. And we're lucky enough to be right here watching it all unfold.
Totally. It's like we're all part of this big experiment, figuring out how data can make the game even better without, taking away from the human side of things.
I like that, the big experiment. And like any good experiment, there will be some surprises. New discoveries, new challenges. We might even have to rethink some things about the role of data in sports.
Yeah, I can see that happening. It's going to be a wild ride for sure. Well, this has been an incredible journey. I've learned so much. I hope everyone listening has too. What do you think? Are you excited about the future of football? Do you think data is going to change the game for the better?
I definitely think so, but I'm curious to hear what everyone else thinks. What are your thoughts? Hit us up and let us know, because this conversation about data and sports is just getting warmed up.
Absolutely. All right, folks, that's a wrap for this deep dive. Thanks for joining us. And remember, keep your eyes on the data and your hearts in the game. We'll catch you next time.